Let's get some analysis on those proceedings. I'm joined by governance expert, Professor Kedibone Phago, and security strategist, Andy Mashaile, this evening. Gentlemen, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. We're going to speak about both the ad hoc committee, what happened earlier, as well as the Madlanga Commission, where we saw the appearance of Linda Xasheka. Let's start with the ad hoc committee. Let's start with you, Prof. Phago. The scenes that we saw earlier with private investigator Paul O'Sullivan, the remarks that he had allegedly made on a TV interview that had had many of those parliamentarians up in arms and quite upset about the remarks that he made. What did you make of, one, those remarks, how he explained those remarks in Parliament, and of course that abrupt leaving that he had to catch a flight earlier today?
Good evening, Katlego, and to the viewers at home, and to my panelist, Dr. Mashaile here. So, Katlego, what we need to understand about these kind of processes is that when the process is handled, as in this case by Parliament, by a parliamentary committee investigating the veracity of the allegations that Lieutenant General Ndlandla Mkhwanazi has alluded to, it's quite important, firstly, to understand that the role of the parliamentary committee is actually doing that to represent you and I as citizens. So we need to take a lot of interest in these developments. That is the first part. The second part is that the way those people that have been called to come and respond treat Parliament, it's tantamount to the manner that they are treating us as citizens. So we really need to look into those matters very, very closely and understand whether the problem may be from the decorum of Parliament, or we just have a problem with the witness that have been called. So it's quite necessary that we really engage those issues very closely. But your other point is very important about how Mr. Paul O'Sullivan was reacting to the committee, and how in the beginning, before he could appear, he went into the media spaces and said whatever he wanted to. And again, it comes to the point I'm trying to make, that it's very important that we understand that these committees are our institutions and are our structures. They are afforded an opportunity to help us understand the kind of policing, the kind of security problems that we are facing as a country. And if it doesn't come out in the way we are anticipating it, it should actually be a wake-up call to us on whether we have the right people in Parliament, or the kind of witnesses that are supposed to be coming leaves much to be desired.
And Dr. Mashaile, maybe let's also just get your reaction with regards to those controversial comments made by Paul O'Sullivan. How should committees address offensive remarks that are being made by witnesses in order to maintain decorum in Parliament?
Good evening to you. It is very, very key and crucial that if witnesses think that they know better than Parliament, or those that have been assembled to represent Parliament, to deal with them with a stick. Dealing with them using the stick would mean get them charged for contempt of Parliament, get them charged for defeating the ends of justice. I don't think Ndate or Paul O'Sullivan packed his bags and left because he was running late for the aeroplane. What he said that we all heard in this country, he said he cannot take this. The line of questioning from MK, from Tatis Kosana, representing Parliament and not necessarily MKP. all of those who are in there are not representing their parties in this engagement, but are representing the people of South Africa. He would be clutching at straws to try and explain to me that he left because he was running late, he made arrangements. No, it was a simple question of, I'm not going to take this line of questioning. Therefore, refusing to comply with the oath that he took that says he will answer all questions truthfully and decently so. So you have two charges that you look at: contempt of parliament as well as defeating the ends of justice, let alone referring to members of that committee as criminals. I am not certain whether Ntate Paul O'Sullivan convicted those that he refers to as criminals sitting in on that committee. I am certain that going in on there, he goes in on there without the baggage of identifying each and every member of that committee to find out if they have committed crimes and have been convicted. I would want to think and assume and conclude that he went in there to talk about representatives of the Parliament of South Africa. If he had issues with people who are convicted, he should have ran to court with immediate effect to say he wants to remove a convicted criminal sitting on the ad hoc committee. And maybe the court would have concurred with him. And in the event that it did not concur with him, he was supposed, or he would be compelled to see them not as units, but as a representation or a representational grouping of parliament.
Gentlemen, let's just pause our conversation there and bring in Zolega Kodashe, who is out in Cape Town. She's been following today's proceedings for us. A very good evening to you, Zolega. With my guests, we are currently discussing what we saw earlier on with regards to Paul O'Sullivan, that conduct, quite contentious, that exchange between himself and the members of parliament. Maybe you can just touch on that to remind our viewers, but also what we are seeing now in parliament with the former acting National Police Commissioner, Khomotso Phahlane, and the issue here being about the deviation, and him earlier saying that he does not regret signing the deviation.
That's correct, Katlego. Good evening and good evening to the viewers. In fact, in relation to Paul O'Sullivan, we've now seen a statement from the National Assembly Speaker, that is Togo Titiza, really looking into that particular conduct of Paul O'Sullivan, as well as the events that transpired earlier today. Now, in that statement, the Speaker says she is looking for a report from the chairperson of the ad hoc committee, that is Soviet Lechanyane, to really speak about what has, give details about what transpired earlier today. You'll remember that there were dramatic scenes here in the National Legislature when Paul O'Sullivan decided to pick up his bags and essentially leave the building because he said he was running late for his flight. And at that point, he was facing questions from the evidence leader, advocate Bongiwe Mkhize, really. And the line of questioning that was being pursued by the evidence leader was really looking at his history, as well as some of the allegations that have previously been leveled against him about him being a spy. And so she was really trying to look at those particular details when Paul O'Sullivan up and left. And you saw that heated exchange, particularly between himself as well as the Umkhonto weSizwe party's David Skosana, where he essentially also followed him, the lawmaker also followed him outside and to his vehicle. That is when Paul O'Sullivan left. And of course, this entire process is also governed by the Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act. So there are provisions there that would guide the committee as well as the National Assembly in terms of how they would proceed. We understand that the Speaker is also engaged, or was engaged, in a meeting with the chairperson of the ad hoc committee, and they're also looking to get legal advice from the parliamentary legal staff in relation to how to proceed. So we do expect that there will be action. But of course, Katlego, if you know Paul O'Sullivan, you know that he will not take that lying down. We expect that he will also be defending his actions should he be served with any legal papers. But as you correctly mentioned, Khomotso Phahlane, the former acting National Police Commissioner, was before the inquisitorial body answering several questions from lawmakers. You remember that he has also faced questions or allegations of corruption, and particularly during his time as Divisional Commissioner of Forensic Services in 2014. Now, that is when he was confronted with that Etemba contract, where there was an amount of around over 90 million rand that was to be awarded to Etemba for panoramic cameras. Now, that is something that he did not sign at the time. He did not sanction that particular awarding of that tender, saying that it flouted several procedures in relation to procurement. And so you'll remember that following that particular debacle, there was a settlement that was reached of around just over 20 million rand that was also signed. And that is something that still haunts him to this day, as he continued facing questions before lawmakers asking him questions in relation to that. But prior to that, he also faced questions from the chief evidence leader, Advocate Norman Arns, and you could see a heated exchange there as well between the chief evidence leader as well as Khomotso Phahlane. In fact, at some point, Phahlane accused our Advocate Arns of working or being in cahoots with the former IPID executive director, that is Robert McBride, something that lawmakers did not take kindly to. So there were also questions around Vusimuzi Matala, the alleged underworld kingpin, and what that relationship might have been or is. Let's just take a listen to what Khomotso Phahlane had to say.
I don't even know why I must answer, but I'm forced to answer. First, I know Vusimuzi Matala. He's a black young man coming from Pretoria. He comes from Mamelodi. I happen to have been in the same area. I think for the better part of my adult life, I've been in Pretoria. So I know him very well. I know Brigadier Rachel Majeng. Brigadier Rachel Majeng used to be somebody who I worked with, and I know him, I know her. And the only reason I know Kat is because the two of them were in a relationship. That's why I got to know him. I think while I've been knowing that there is Kat, a person in Mamelodi called Madlanga, I met him after I got to know that he is in a relationship with her. And I happened to meet with Kat not during my tenure in any office. I was long out of office, so my meetings with him had absolutely nothing to do with what is happening in the police or in government. So I want to confirm that I have met Kat Matlala.
Now, Katlego, he also said that he knew Kat Matlala because he also bumped into him when they were at a restaurant, and also because he frequents a spa in Pretoria. So we expect that he will continue facing questioning from lawmakers as they also seek to get to the bottom of those allegations of corruption that were leveled against him, particularly in relation to what now seems to be that relationship between himself as well as Vusimuzi Matlala. We expect that we may actually conclude with his testimony tonight, and we will get direction from the chief evidence leader as well as the chairperson as to how we will be proceeding.
All right, so like Kodasha will be bringing us the latest coming from that ad hoc parliamentary committee that's continuing to take place with the former acting National Police Commissioner there, continuing with his testimony. Let's continue our discussion with Professor Kedibone Phago, who is a governance expert, together with retired Interpol ambassador and security strategist Andy Mashaile. Maybe let's start with you, Prof. With regards to the Paul O'Sullivan issue and my colleague there, Zulega Kodashe, raising that the Speaker of Parliament has requested a formal statement from the chairperson of the ad hoc committee to outline essentially what happened today, and essentially also her wanting to know then what action could be taken in terms of the Powers and Privileges Act and the rules of the National Assembly. With such conduct, what is most likely to come out of a situation such as this?
Look, Katlego, this is quite serious because undermining Parliament is tantamount to undermining the citizens, because as I earlier indicated, we have a representative democracy in South Africa. So the parliamentarians and their processes seek to represent our wishes. So there can be a lot of options that the Speaker and and his legal team would advise them on. They should actually be able to report the matter to police. It's quite important that they do that so that he understands that you don't just undermine public institutions in the manner that he did, and that you fail to account, because we are dealing with very serious issues at the moment as a country. So you don't want any person to actually just behave in the way as if there are no consequences. But I think what we must also remember is that there has been precedences in the past, and I think it is this time during this time we need to applaud the swift move that the Speaker seems to be doing, and they just need to follow up on that and make sure that this matter is put to rest, even if it means that he needs to be subpoenaed back to ad hoc committee. If he refuses, then obviously they need to subject that to the legal processes that can get him to jail.
And Dr. Mashaile, when we're looking at that clip that we just witnessed of the former acting National Police Commissioner Phahlane, and he was speaking there about how he knew Vusmuzi Matlala, saying that they come from the same social circles, or they meet in some social circles. They both come from Pretoria, and we know that this is an inquisitorial process. When you look at some of the things that he speaks about, Matlala having had a relationship with Brigadier Rachel Macheng, what does this do in terms of perception, just of those of who is aligned with who knows who moves in the same circles as who? What kind of perception does this create?
That sets him off against the hyenas of justice, of law, order, and justice. And the hyenas would go after him because of the level of detail. This is not first level detail that he's discussing. This is second and third level detail, meaning you know too much about what is going on in the private space of those individuals. Does it suggest that you were meeting frequently? You even got to know the nature of the relationships between individual Ntate Matlala and Rachel Macheng, the brigadier. It creates a bad taste in the mouth of the investigation. Perception would rule that it means he has a better, deeper relationship with Matlala than what he has shared with us. I would not have gone into the details of the relationship because there was a contradiction in his own statement. He says in that clip, he says he's long known Ket Matala as a young man in the community where he grew up, where Ket grew up, and where he spent most of his adult life. And a few seconds later, in the same clip, in the same statement, he says he got to meet Ket because he had a relationship. Ket had a relationship with Rachel. So that's where you are now talking against yourself, or the statements are in a head-on collusion in terms of what you said 10 seconds ago does not accord with what you said 20 seconds later on. So I would not have gone into the detail. The challenge, Katlego, with people who come before the Madlanga Commission and the Hoc Committee, they say too much, all in a way and manner aimed at wanting to exonerate themselves, and in that strategic and tactical move that is dangerous to them. They say a lot, and those who are listening to you can pick up these details. Look, I only had to listen for a few seconds to can pick up that there is a contradiction here. It doesn't gel well. But by that moment, he doesn't listen to himself in a way and manner that says, am I contradicting myself? Can I contradict myself? This is what you've also seen in the last few days at the Madlanga Commission. One general said a lot and ultimately had to concede that he did not have the authorization document that says disband the PKTT.
Most certainly. Well, let's just take this to the Madlanga Commission, as you've just mentioned it. Let's step into that. But before we get to the Madlanga Commission, we do have Anonymous on the line from Durban. Anonymous, a very good evening to you. What did you make of the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee today?
Yes, my comment is there were more offensive comments from parliamentarians than O'Sullivan.
And did you find that that then meant that he was not trying to be accountable?
Yes, he was trying to be accountable. However, in particular, Honorable Skosana, I can quote the words he used, dark criminals. Now, as a responsible citizen, from where I'm sitting, is that at that level, at Parliament, when we are subjected to Parliament committee, is it fair for them to call a witness with those names? And when he calls them names, then he is subjected to, obviously, the further steps, however they call it.
All right, Anonymous, that's certainly a very interesting point, that back and forth of calling each other criminals. Thank you so much for your inputs this evening. Let's get to the Madlanga Commission now, where suspended Ekurhuleni Human Resources head Linda Xhasheka has been pressed on allegations that she supported City Manager Andy Mashaile's powers in matters related to police chiefs. She appeared before the Madlanga Commission, which is looking into allegations of infiltration in the criminal justice system. Xhasheka told the inquiry that the city manager, as head of municipal operations, holds overarching authority, which includes oversight of the city's Metro Police.
There, if we go back to page 41 of that file too, the allegation in 3.1.2 is that you supported the exercise of powers by the erstwhile city manager, Dr. Mashaile, notwithstanding that powers were, the relevant powers were being vested in the chief of police. And you respond to that from paragraph 29. Can I ask you to explain your response to the Commission?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Again, my intention here is to submit in front of the Commission that whereas Isaac Mapieye, the Chief of Police, refers to SAPS Act, Section 64C, as the ultimate law that governs EMPD, the city is regulated by other laws. I could have articulated this previously. We have the Municipal Systems Act, specifically I think Section 55, but I'm not going to dwell on that. Municipal Structures Act, Municipal Finance Management Act, Municipal Staff Regulation, as amended in September 2021, Labor Relations Act that we must prescribe to or subscribe to, the Disciplinary Procedure Collective Agreement, amongst other few legal prescript that can be mentioned that governs the city of Ekurhuleni. I further submit that the city manager is the ultimate authority in all matters and functionaries relating to operations of the municipality, specifically in this instance, municipal police services.
All right, we continue to get reaction on this from our governance expert, Professor Kedibone Phago, and security strategist, Andy Mashaile. Prof, when we're looking at the Madlanga Commission, a number of issues are standing out. And here, Gashega talks about the Blue Light Saga and the suspension of the EMPD Deputy Chief Julius Mkhwanazi, and how all of these matters really came to her attention after they were escalated by the divisional head, and that was Mr. Xolani Nxiza. When you take a look at her testimony, what do you think it reveals just about the internal dynamics and the integrity of the municipal management structures of all of those that were involved?
Look, Katlego, I think what is happening is when my reading is that a lot of people here are literally just trying to save their skin and pointing fingers elsewhere, saying that they did not know, saying that they don't have powers. But maybe it's too early to say, but also what we need to observe is that when people are in senior management positions, they all have a lot of responsibility to work together as a collective, to support one another, but also to understand that they need to protect the state resources. So if you are an HR executive in a position and are dealing with such sensitive issues, for me, what is even surprising that all these issues are not necessarily, reported to the council in the manner that they should. It looks like that the council oversight, because it's the highest decision-making body, that it looks like they have found a way of, hiding some of these very, very serious issues from the council. So it really tells us in more ways than one that our governance architecture need to be strengthened quite seriously, because we cannot in any way understand how can an executive in her space really not know the things that are happening under their nose. We understand they are in a very busy space, but there is no way that we should accept that version as even from face value that she did not know, because I'm certain that one or two colleagues may have tried to send some message and say we have a serious issue here, but maybe because of certain relationships or dynamics in the workplace, they try to look the other way so that they are able to save their own skin. So we need to really go back to the drawing board and say, how do we support our executives so that they act in the interest of our institutions and our citizens?
Dr. Mashaile, just on that, which Prof is talking about, people saving their own skins, claiming not to know what was happening, hiding some of those very serious issues from council. How do testimonies like this of Gashega reflect just on the effectiveness of the oversight mechanisms that exist within municipalities?
Katlego, SAPS Act 68 of 1995, relevant sections read in conjunction with the regulations and all attending amendments supersede any other law, especially at municipal level, and in comparison to competing laws which have to do with policing. In this context, Ntate Mapieye would have been right to say SAPS Act supersedes all other laws and regulations at the municipal level. So you need to have that intelligence, that wisdom from a managerial perspective. And secondly, Katlego, you do in our days gone by, you do what you call departmental intelligence briefings or sessions every morning or every 3 days or every 4 days or every 5 days, so that you are well aware of the impact of other departments and operations on your own, impact on your own department that you are driving, that you are managing. And you also need to know how your department, either human resources development or human resources management,
Right.
you need to know how those two dynamics impact on the office of the city manager and the decisions and what is projected from the city manager's office, how it impacts in on your labor relations, HRM and HRD, so that you are on top of the situation. What we picked up from Mama Gasheka is to the effect that Mama was not on the ball with regard to the issues that I have raised, and therefore providing faulty or contaminated advice to the city manager based on what I spoke about and based on what I analyzed in the evidence in this smallanyana clip that she put up with regard to responding to the commissioner's questions. So there's a lot with regard to integrity of the system, systemic weaknesses, and many others.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. That's where we're going to leave it for today. Prof. Kedibone Phago, pardon me, as well as Ndate Andy Mashaile, thank you for your analysis and your insights. It certainly is very appreciated. Thanks for joining us this evening.